We're live, Chair.
Right, good morning and welcome to the Performance Scrutiny Committee for People. Before we move on, I have to read out this wonderful declaration. Scrutiny Committee is being conducted on a hybrid basis in accordance with Local Government and Elections Act 21 and will operate alongside Council standing orders. I can remind members that the meeting is being live streamed, and can I request that everybody on the hybrid system put your cameras off if you're home and mute your microphones and put them on when you're requested to come back in. And those people in live situations here, well, we've got no cameras, so we're fine. I can also remind you that to ensure that that chat function is switched on, and you indicate using the hand signal when you wish to speak, as well as with being recorded live. The meeting will be uploaded to the Council's website for public viewing as soon as possible after the meeting, whilst translations of the proceedings can be provided upon request. Images of said recordings may also be used for training purposes within the Council. And can I remind all members that we are under the normal standing orders at all times. Thank you very much indeed. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to December's meeting. It's lovely to see you. Apologies for absence, please.
You've got apologies from Councillor Mullaney, Councillor Bright and Councillor Pym. Thank
you. Any declarations of interest? If any arises during the meeting, just let us know. Thank you. Minutes of the previous meeting, well, you've received them in advance, but they're going to be agreed in the
January.
I just tested you the January meeting. I knew that all along. Okay, we go on to item 4, which is the service area plan, children and young people service plan 22 to 24. I'm presenting as the head of service, Natalie Palmer. Natalie, good morning to you, and would you like to take us through this, please?
Thank you, Councillor Rhagfyr. I hope you've all had an opportunity to read and consider the plan that has been sent to all parties. So in terms of the social services, children's services plan, it really kind of demonstrates what we hope to achieve moving forward. We've got 4 objectives and various different actions underneath each of those. So objective 1 really is to deliver effective services to support children to safely remain with their families. Also to improve outcomes for children in care and care leavers, including a focus on safe reunification, and also to ensure that we have a range of placement provisions for our children that are looked after. We also want to prevent our children offending and re-offending. So we considered a plan that would assist us in delivering those objectives.
Thank you very much indeed. In our usual fashion, we're going to go through the report. We'll start on page 12 of the report here. Anything on page 12? Page 13? Any observations on page 13? Okay, I have one. The international team Newport is city is a sanctuary and supports families seeking refuge, and it goes on, but we got nothing there. So what are we doing?
So in terms of the international team, that's a team that we've currently put various business cases into to develop. So we have a large population of unaccompanied asylum seekers, some of which we are mandated to support through the National Transfer Scheme. So they're those children that arrive at port, are placed in hotels and then have to move on. We also have a large number of unaccompanied asylum seekers that arrive spontaneously that to support. But we've also We also have a growing population of families that have no recourse to public funds, that Children's Services have a duty to support. And we also have the ongoing Ukrainian crisis, and therefore because of the processes surrounding meeting the needs of these particular citizens, we wanted to develop a team that would assist us in managing their needs and helping them to navigate through what are really quite complex systems. So at the moment, in terms of it's not going to cost us any additional money to develop that team, because we are awarded a sum of money through the Home Office for each unaccompanied asylum seeking child, that will assist us then in developing that team. So we've got a workforce to assist us.
Thank you for that. I wanted to get that out, but I was referring to why is the page empty? There's nothing for us to look at, nothing for us to speak about, nothing for us to engage with. No wellbeing objectives, no supportive council transformation plans, no programme project management service, no anticipated date of completion. Why has this come to us in this format?
I seem to have a different. I have a different version. My version is complete.
We only have what we've been sent. Page 13. Page 13. Yours incomplete, councillor? Yeah. Yeah, there we are. So we have what we've been sent, and that's really what I was digging down to. No, it's okay. I was interested to hear the reading anyway.
Is that anything to do with the bottom of page 12?
Yeah, I think it's just a slip in the way that it's come over.
The wellbeing objective is 3 years.
It's wellbeing objective 3, it will come out.
Well, it is there's under the different title, so we would class it as different cabinet member. It's under the international team, so it obviously isn't an account, even though you mentioned it. It's a different thing.
I think it's just an error in terms of when we sent the papers over, but as Councillor Hughes says, it is wellbeing objective 3. Obviously, we're still in line with waiting for the transformation plan and final sign-off.
Okay.
And then it sits with the service manager who supports the unaccompanied asylum seeking children getting paid. And something is already described. The work's already started, and it will now progress to it.
Okay, I accept that, but can we try and ensure that committee members get all the information that you have, because we cannot hold you to scrutiny if you don't give us anything to scrutinise you by.
Sure.
Thank you. Yes.
Can I first declare an interest in that? I host a Ukrainian family, but can I congratulate social services on the way that they have assisted Ukrainians to come in and to negotiate all there's so many different hurdles that need to be negotiated, but that's been done in an exemplary way, I feel. So
That's okay. I'm not quite sure whether you should have done that, but you've done it, and that was good. Thank you. So number 14, page 14, anyone? Oh, look at that. Okay. Page 15.
yes, Chair.
Yes.
On point 2 at the bottom of the page, to restructure the child protection teams, and how is this restructuring going to be done?
Okay, so we prior to this year, we had 4 child protection teams, and they mirrored each other in terms of structure. But in response to the growing demand for supporting adolescents that were at risk of coming into care, because parents were struggling to kind of manage their behaviour or there are some young people that that are involved in child exploitation. What we felt that we needed to do was develop a team that could be far more intense. So basically what we've developed now is a team that kind of works with age 10 and above, with lower caseloads in order to work more intensively with families in order to keep the children home. So that team we've got a team manager in place now, we've got a senior practitioner, and we're just in the process now with social workers across into that team. So it's basically a team to respond to the trends and themes that we're seeing coming through.
Can I further ask how is there an interaction between social services and head teachers in schools to try to pick up on those pupils who may well present a problem later in their?
Yeah, so there was a piece of work, it was prior to COVID, where there was a piece of research that was undertaken with the support of the Police and Crime Commissioners team, that was identifying kind of trends and patterns of behaviour. So when children were initially being excluded from school, so there was a cohort of young people that we traced as a multi-agency group to see exactly what the patterns, and currently there's a pilot, well it's no longer a pilot, but Lamworm Cluster is working closely with the Youth Justice Service and other agencies to kind of pick up and identify those vulnerable children that are in primary school age and supporting them transition to high school. What was clear that came out of that piece of research was that a lot of the young people had speech and language difficulties, that there was challenges in terms of those transition years. So that's been really, really successful.
It's good to hear.
Okay.
Yeah, I have one question, possibly a supplementary question. You mentioned about reoffending children. What sort of percentage do you think that are reoffending children? You have it there. So
in terms of we've got a very low number of children that we actually support on orders in Newport. So I think it's between 70 and 80% of the young people that we support in our youth justice service is preventative work. And we've got a range of activities that we engage in people to prevent them engage in such activities. We've also in Newport, we've got the NRN, so the process which identifies young people that are potentially at risk of being trafficked. So it's the national referral mechanism. So we identify those young people and then we take them through a panel to protect them from being exploited, from trafficking, exploitation and various other things. But for us in Newport, we've got quite a low offending rate, or certainly the young people that we support are managed in a way that will prevent them reoffending in the future. And there's lots of early identification. We've got a toolkit that's currently being reviewed by our service manager. We've just embarked again on some contextual safeguarding work. So that's about it being everybody's responsibility to protect our children within the community. So there's lots of good pieces of work going on at the moment.
So is that percentage reducing? That's to the work which
Yes.
you're doing, social services?
Yes, it is.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The restructuring team is anticipated to be complete by next March. Are we online with that?
Absolutely. I'm anticipating that will be within the next few months. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Page 16, 17, 18.
Right, Chair. Can I go back to page 7, please? In regards to disability, do we have many disabled children within care?
We don't. We have a relatively small population of children that we care for in the care system.
That's within the community or within our care?
In our care in terms of placements. So yeah, so we have some. I think it's probably about 20 to 30 children that we care for in terms of the care system. Some of those with the consent of parents, because parents are, due to the complex needs of the young people, are unable to offer that level of care to the children. Some children, like our sort of general population, parents are unable to care because their own needs then, and children may have been subjected to neglect. So in terms of the children that we do have, they tend to be those with the most complex needs in our care system that require specialist residential provision.
Yeah. Do we have enough facilities to be able to accommodate that? That's a simple question. That's a leading question. You're going to say yes to that.
Yeah.
We don't.
No,
No, we don't. So we've got the eliminate profit agenda. So that's being driven forward by Welsh Government, which means that that any providers that make profits from children's residential provisions or foster care provision and so on, but within 5 years they have to cease operating. We rely considerably on providers to provide care for our disabled children. So that's going to be a huge challenge for us. What we're doing in order to kind of mitigate some of those risks is we're working with Action for Children, who is a not-for-profit organisation, to develop a residential provision locally. We're also we're in discussions with the Regional Partnership Board around obtaining capital funding for our own provision within Newport for our disabled children in order to bring them back from out of authority residential provisions, because, you know, we want them back in Newport, they're our children, we want to care for them, but also the current provisions they're in, there'll be an expectation that they cease operating.
in regards to the children which are actually in, what sort of percentage are outside in what we could possibly?
Our disabled children,
Overall,
there's a percentage.
In terms of in residential care, we currently have about 20 children, some disabled, some not, who are placed out of Newport. And we have a larger number of people placed in foster care. The one caveat I suppose we'd use around that is that some of those children might be placed, for example, in Philly or Monmouthshire. And whilst that is Newport, it's not the other side of the country. So there is something about a proportionality about how we see that. The concern is this very small group of children whose needs we really, all local authorities struggle to meet, and that we're, as Matthew describes, we're trying to really build the capacity that we've got within Newport to meet them. So it's small numbers, 380 total members of children who are currently looked after, and of those only about 20 are in residential care. It's not good enough, but even where we
there comes a time where, unfortunately, other forces come into play in regards to they have to be protected.
And it is, as Sally said, a relatively small number when you consider that our disabled children's team currently support, 360 odd children. So that is a really, really small number. So we manage to care for those within their homes. So it's.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, that is, the policy of bringing children back home to Wales is the first one, and I think you meet that objective. Keeping them close to Newport, you meet that objective. How many unregistered places do we have? Because you mentioned children with disabilities and those without. So how many are kept in unregistered placements?
So currently, in terms of our operating without registration, we currently have 3 children. However, we've identified a placement for, so we've got 2 placements identified for 2 of those children. So we'll be moving those shortly.
So we have 3 in unregistered placements. Care Inspection Wales wouldn't be smiling upon you with that, and we know that could bring let's say actions upon this council, and indeed even upon yourselves for going down there. But this isn't good enough. And you spoke about eliminate. Wow, that comes up further on. Can we have a report back on the progress of eliminating the unregistered placements for our children under social services within Newport to our next committee?
Yeah, if I could ask whether or not we could come back to committee with a report about the whole eliminate agenda, which would include placements operating without registration, because I think that whole agenda of elimination is a really broad and really challenging area of work for children's services.
Absolutely.
And whilst operating without registration, it's of considerable concern, and I'm hoping that our main inspector from Care Inspectorate Wales is on this meeting.
I hope he is as well. Oh, they are.
Now, what I would say, both my own and Natalie's defence on this, is that we have been really clear about working with Care Inspectorate Wales about those placements, about telling them that we have them, and then working with them within the framework that they've got for the monitoring of those placements, basically. It doesn't make it right, and I absolutely agree with you, but it is how we work with the regulator, in this case the IW, in order to ensure the safest placements that we can.
We will agree with that, and that's right and proper to do so. But also, I want a special section on unregistered placements and what we are actually doing and the responsibilities of this authority, because we are in not a good place with 3 unregistered placements, and we'll leave it there for now, because we are on your side, but also we take our responsibilities for safeguarding seriously, and I'm going to take it. Thank you.
Councillor Cleverly's in to Chair.
Councillor Cleverly.
Thank you, Chair. My question is on page 18. It's about the care leavers. Is there housing provided for them when they do leave care? I'd like an update, please. Thank you.
Yeah, so currently Newport has quite a large stock of semi-supported accommodation, and we currently use one provider, but we're also looking to branch out and look at other providers in order that support that's provided, is competitive. What we've also got 2 provisions that have been ongoing for the last couple of years, but due to COVID they've been delayed. So one is a provision that will support our 16 to 18-year-olds. So that's 24-hour provision, and it's a 6-bed property. We also have another provision that we're awaiting, and and that is for our 18 plus. So what we're hoping to do is see a seamless transition for our young people that come from, they may be in our care, whether that be foster care provision, whether that be our residential provision, that then are identified as requiring additional support before they move into independence, can move into these provisions. We also work with Pobl in terms of the George Street provision, which again is 16 to 18 provision, and we've also increased the number of When I'm Ready offers for young people, and also our new service manager, Jay McCabe, is also looking to increase our offer of supported lodgings and provision for our young people.
Thank you, Natalie. Can I have a supplementary, Chair?
Yes.
What is their transition good or bad, or what percentage? Sorry.
I think it's difficult to quantify in terms of transition, because I think it's very much dependent on the individual's needs. We work really closely with our colleagues in housing. So we've got a housing, a youth homelessness worker based within our children looked after team that will help and guide us. We work closely with CAB, also other organisations of Skills for Living, in order to prepare our young people for transition. We've also got what's called an independent living panel, where young people are presented from the age of 15 plus, in order to ensure that we've covered all options in terms of identifying where their vulnerabilities are, in order that we can transition them as best we possibly can. We promote, there's various different workshops that young people are able to engage in, to ensure that they've got adequate cooking skills, that they're able to manage finances. So I think that, Newport's in quite a good place, that we've got a designated children looked after service. So they're that team's priority. In some local authorities, children looked after are supported in teams where there are child protection cases or court cases and so on, whereas actually our pathway team focuses primarily on our children looked after.
Thank you. Councillor.
Thank you.
Saying on page 18, and that's on the bottom where it says increased housing options for care leavers. Currently, Newport has a limited range. Is this going to be increased in the future, and would that be through social housing organisations?
This is us really trying to increase our portfolio and offer for our children. We do support children, post 18, because there is a shortage of accommodation, so social accommodation, and we work very closely with our housing colleagues in order to prioritise some of our young children, focusing on, single unit accommodation. And currently there's actually a housing strategy being developed, which is us corporately looking to plan for our most vulnerable citizens. So there are young people, not just our children looked after, but also our young people that present to us at 16 that are homeless. So yeah, we are increasing, although it says we've got a limited choice in terms of accommodation options. Actually, in comparison to some other local authorities, we've got a large stock of accommodation that Children's Services is a source to support our children, to prevent them, being placed in things such as bed and breakfasts, etc. So we seek to support them in that way.
That's what concerns me, is once they come of age, are the transition easier, and do we have accommodation or facilities to be able to accommodate those, possibly with a cabinet member for adult services as well?
Yeah, and those obviously with those that are eligible for adult services, there's early transition. So we've got a transition social worker, we've got a link with adult services. So they work very closely in terms of those most vulnerable young people. And just to note that in terms of those children that are 18, so eligible for housing accommodation, we don't, when they reach 16, evict them from our accommodation. We will support them in terms of transitioning into their own accommodation.
Yes, thank you. Page 19. Page 20. Page 21. Page 21, reference 1. I give you an opportunity to explain the strategy here.
Okay, so in terms of the parent and baby residential provision, the Welsh Government has, in terms of the eliminate and transformation agenda, it basically offered or invited local authorities to make bids for sums of money. We bid for a funding to assist us in developing a small provision to support mother and babies remaining together. What we've seen is, particularly in Newport, and I would say that it's also being seen in Caerphilly, a large number of women that are requiring additional support when giving birth to their babies. So rather than, we want to promote and keep them together, so we put a bid in for sum of money to develop that. We've been awarded a sum of money, but we're still awaiting the grant award letter, which will determine how we spend that money, because we put in multiple bids at the same time. So that's something that we're waiting on.
Any other questions on that point? If not, I shall move on. We look forward to the outcome of this as well. Watching this really carefully. Okay, that's 21, page 22. 23. Reference 2 on page 23. Acquisition of new justice intervention hub to promote multi-agency working through early prevention and intervention work. The acquisition, are we purchasing a new place, or are we repurposing an old place?
So we're currently in discussions around whether or not there's an asset in Newport that we could use. And in terms of renovating that property, again, what we would do is if we identify an asset, we could then look to renovate that premises with a bid to Welsh Government for capital funding to assist us in doing that. So we're just in the early stages. There's been some discussions with our colleagues in assets to identify whether or not there's a provision there. That provision, what we're hoping, is going to be multidisciplinary provision, so we can bring our education colleagues. It'd be multi-purpose in terms of an offer to our young people potentially that require an alternative education. So that's quite a big piece of work that's just started. And the biggest thing really is identifying an asset that we can use to base the hub.
Just a supplementary to that, Chair, is are we likely to see any results or outcomes, let's say, by April 23?
That's unlikely. It'll be longer than that. Yeah.
It has an anticipated date of completion of 2025, and it's a massive work program of bringing all the different aspects together, let alone acquisition in a new intervention hub. We look forward to seeing the completion of this. We look forward to hearing the updates and seeing how we can, as a committee, add value to looking at what you do. Thank you for that. Okay, page 25. This 24 somewhere, I don't know. 24. Yeah. 25.
Chair, on 25.
Yeah.
So then two there. The first section, middle of the page, says the total number of children removed, deregistered from a child protection register. So you've got 148 and then 207. And then at the last but one, the number of children coming looked after during the year, 91 rising to 166. Is there a correlation between those two at all, or are they looking at different things?
Well, in terms of sequence of events, when children are deemed at risk of significant harm, what we first attempt to do is support them on a care and support plan. And in the event that the risks continue to escalate, then we would look to support them on the child protection register. I suppose the last resort for us within children's services is actually removing children and placing them into local authority care. And in terms of the numbers, in terms of increase, in terms of those children that come into our care, what I would say is that actually the overall amount of children that are currently in our care has been pretty static for a number of years. So although we have children coming into care, we also support a number of children exiting care. So rehabilitation back home, or children being supported by special guardians. But yes, you know, just if you consider the number of referrals that are coming into children's services year on year, this is a significant increase. What we are seeing is that families are struggling. Families are struggling in terms of in terms of the black from COVID, the isolation, mental health, domestic violence, and now we're being hit with the cost of living crisis. So the complexity and the volume of referrals that are coming in are really quite significant. What I'm reassured about, though, is that we are continuing to try and support families remaining at home, and I think that that's evidenced by our pretty static looked after children population.
Okay, 26. 27. You already sort of were skirted upon this one, that you eliminate profit from social care. I don't want to progress this any further myself, because I'm looking forward to the fuller picture coming forward to the committee. And if committee is mindful, then I will not ask. I've already done it earlier. But please feel free to, any member of the committee, they wish to question anything on page 27. Trevor.
It's the first item, really. What sort of risk pressures that you have are going to have over the next, let's say, 2 years, 23, 25?
Workforce, so just in terms of the pressures, and I'd just like to note that this isn't just Newport, this is the UK-wide pressures, you know, national pressures for local authorities. Our biggest pressure is workforce, so we are struggling at the moment to encourage young people, adults into the social work profession, and that's for a number of reasons. There's lots of work going on nationally in order to support us in encouraging individuals to come into the profession. I think the other huge, I've already touched upon it, is the the complex needs of families and children, in our society at the moment. So, with the issues that families are facing and increased caseloads for social workers, without, social workers having lower caseloads, obviously you can't spread yourself, if you spread yourself so thin in terms of investing in each of our families. We work very, very closely with our prevention and our community based provisions, and I'm hoping that with the development of the prevention and inclusion team, that we can work together in terms of diverting families out of statutory provisions to be supported by the services within the communities.
You mentioned that this is that involved nationally. It's a national issue. Are we talking to Welsh Government to try and get some extra financial assistance to be able to reduce these pressures?
Yeah, absolutely. And some of the funding in terms of transformation and some of the bids that we've put in to assist in doing that. So absolutely, it's on the agenda. It's all Wales Heads of Service. It's on the and Welsh Government come there with it's on the agenda with our regional heads of service and also the directors. It's on at every level. Social Care Wales, CIW. We're all concerned about this moving forward.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay. Thank you, Natalie, for presenting those and cabinet members as well. Thank you. We're going to move on now to adult services. The presenter this morning is it going to be Mary, right?
No, very well. So I'm going to put this one up today.
And we're in safe hands. We've also got the Director of Social Services who will take us through this. Thank you. I'm going to come over straight forward.
So thank you very much, and apologies for Mary that she's unable to do it. So just in terms of the adult services plan, just as Natalie has done with the children's plan, obviously you've had the paper route, you've had an opportunity to peruse, and I've no doubt you have questions. Just to highlight that the objectives of the adult services plan are very much obviously first and foremost to support the delivery of the corporate plan and meet our statutory duties, and that's absolutely key. And then three outlined objectives we have are supporting individuals and carers to maintain their independence and support them when they need help by providing equitable access to early intervention and prevention. And again, just like with children's services, the purpose all the time is to support people to remain with their families in their communities, to retain their independence in a way that's safe for them, and that they can lead good, happy lives with a quality to them. And then to ensure that our safeguarding arrangements for adults and their carers remain robust, that we are fully compliant with Social Services and Wellbeing Act, as well as all other legislation that pertains to adult services. And then looking at continuing the development and sustainability of adult services. And part of that is very much about co-production, about understanding what the people who live in the city want from the services, what carers want and what our providers want. And that's both about meeting our statutory duties, but also about understanding our population and the needs of that population. So those are the sort of headline objectives. And then sitting under that, just in the same way as you've seen in the children's, indeed in prevention, inclusion and in the education service plans, we've got a series of pieces of work which fulfil those objectives. So, try to answer questions on Mary's behalf. Thank you.
That's okay. I'll make sure you will. Does the cabinet member want to add anything at this moment in time?
Just to say across the board, Chair, it's. I think we're talking about all these services. We're talking about all the things going on, but it's in the context as well of an incredibly difficult time for social workers and social care staff across the board. And I think that's something that just needs to be noted. I think, I've been in social work for 25 years now, and I've never seen it as hard as it is now. And I think that reflects itself in recruitment. Natalie's talked about workforce that goes all the way through into adult services in domiciliary care. And I think you know, when we do hear words like savings being mentioned, the reality of that will be additional pressures on the services that we produce on a local level. And I think, you know, it's really important people understand that there's benefits to prevention. It saves money later, you know, and I think we're in a position now where our social care staff have already gone through, as Natalie said, we've gone through very difficult, challenging financial times in the past, and we've gone through a very, very difficult COVID period where these staff didn't stop working. They carried on through the same way as our health staff did. And I think, you know, there's a need for some complementary stuff there as well for me, in the sense that these staff have worked incredibly hard through very, very difficult times, and those difficult times aren't getting any easier. As the Druid said, you know, we're in a very, very difficult cost of living crisis situation now, which is putting additional pressures on our staff. So for me, it's just about acknowledging somewhere in that journey that there are people at the end of this, and all the things that we're talking about. These people are going through incredibly, our social care staff are going through incredibly challenging times, and it's just to put that context on it, really. Chair.
We certainly appreciate everything that you've said, and it is remembering that we are only human after all, as the song goes, and it goes for all of us in this room and beyond. And so we move on. So page 32.
Chair,
Yes,
hospital service. Please, can you explain what support adult services redesign means?
So we currently provide obviously extensive services to individuals who are at risk of going into hospital, who are in hospital or coming out of hospital. We work really closely with our regional partners to provide something called home first provision, which Newport lead on regionally, and that's very much about identifying the earliest possible opportunity when people go into hospital, how they will come out of hospital, and what care may need to be wrapped around them. So the work that we're doing with our home first team and with our hospital team is to ensure that we've got the best possible services with the resources that we've got to meet the need in the hospital. And so you will be as aware as I am, as everybody else on this, that there is huge pressure within that system, and particularly this time of year, and particularly flu, post-COVID, everything that's happening within the hospital system. We work immensely closely with our hospital colleagues. I mean, almost on a daily basis, we're in some call or some meeting to try to ensure that we can get the people out as quickly as we can. What I would stress, though, is that at any one time, when we're looking for care for people, the vast majority of people we are looking for care for are in the community. And whilst that focus on those coming out of hospital is hugely important, we need to ensure that we equally focus on those within the community, or we risk them becoming hospital patients. And that is a real challenge sometimes when you've got quite a lot of media and government pressure on us in terms of that transfer, is trying to keep that balance right. Councillor Hughes has equally been part of some of these really challenging and difficult conversations about how we manage that. So whilst it is a huge part of our work, it's not the biggest part. The biggest part is the work that we do in the community.
Councillor Watkins.
The same issue, same problem, should we say. We work as on the Grange, I believe now.
We work from all of the hospitals on Gwent, because residents from Newport could be in the Grange, they could be receiving services from the Gwent or from YYF, the Hospital of Astronomic. So there's a range of services where they could. So we work with all of the hospitals in Gwent to cover the residents of Newport and Nevermore, sorry.
Are we aware of the number which are actually in those hospitals, which are Newport residents?
So we are aware pretty much on a daily basis of how many patients are in the hospital who will require some sort of support or care in order to come out. we can probably get the data of all of the residents, but of course most people in the hospital won't need our services. They'll go in and they'll come out and be cared for with their families as they would be. But in terms of those who are going to require services, yes, we have that data on. It changes day by day, as you can imagine, in terms of admissions and discharges. But that data is really closely scrutinised regionally and nationally. We report it fortnightly on that data. So yes, we have that. Our staff, one of our managers who works every day, is looking at who do we need to assess, who do we need to support, what do we need to do. We are looking at, and I can't emphasise strongly enough how closely we scrutinise that.
The system which we're running at the moment, the step up, step down,
Yeah.
Yeah. Have we thought about expanding that?
Yes, and I mean, step up, step down is a really good example of where you can work with different provision in different communities and give people a different sort of care. And we want our hospital services to be for those who require health services and who require medical care. So being able to access step up, step down in terms of being able to give people a period of rehabilitation care is really important. One of the things we are dependent on that is being able to access the right therapy services. So when people come into a step down provision, so for example, including Parklands for us, we want to make sure they've got the right physiotherapy, the right occupational therapy, the other services that go with them to ensure that they are able to return to their home or to the setting in which they wish to live as quickly as possible. So yes, there are, again, constant discussions about how can we increase the capacity in terms of step down, what are the resources that we can use both for health and social care and from Newport and from the other local authorities in place.
Because the success of bringing the children back out to the town such has been a good success in regards to saving financially.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering whether the same system could be exactly the same, or would it be ideal to put into a private setting?
I think what we're trying to do, partly because of some of the capacity and the challenges with adult services, is that we look at all options within this. We look at the services that we as a local authority are able to provide, that not-for-profit third sector are going to provide, but also that the private providers are going to. And in adult services, the market is quite different from the services, the way that it's developed in children's. And we are very reliant on a number of small, largely local providers, which is a little bit different the way that it's worked out in children's. So the challenges and the issues in terms of profit and those elements of it are different in adults. So we work with, as do our health colleagues, a number of providers to ensure that we've got the right care, be that step up, step down, or be that domiciliary care. We work across the there's always learning between children and adults in both directions. I think in this area of work, the challenges and what's asked of us in adults are quite different to the challenges and what's asked of us in children's. In adults, we're quite often looking for quite short-term periods of care. In children's, it tends to be longer term. In adults, we quite often have local providers, local businesses, local employers, who are able to provide provision locally. We don't see that so much in children's, so it's very different. And the actual quantity is profoundly different. So whereas in children's, we might be looking for residential placements, in adults we're looking for considerably greater numbers of placement and considerably greater provision in terms of the support offered within the community. So quite different in terms of how we manage them.
The reason I asked the question, Chair, is to reference the ambulance service. When 3 or 4 ambulances are queuing, they normally allocate one ambulance team to those on trolleys within the hospital, up to 3 trolleys. So then 2 ambulances can go off and get something else. And obviously a city has actually set up a system very similar to that, only within a building as such, where they don't have the facilities of staff required, where in a hospital you have
no, we are doing those sorts of things with the health board and with the other local authorities to ensure that we are able to, so that people can come out of hospital as quickly as possible, and as soon as they don't require that intensive care, that you, not intensive care literally, but the intensity of care, and that we can look at different models, different types of staff. And back to Councillor Hughes's point earlier is that what we constantly hit as a challenge in this area of work is workforce. And just as Natalie talked about social workers and obviously family support workers in children's services, in adult social care, social workers, but also domiciliary care staff, residential staff, pressure in that area is significant, basically. And whilst there have been some really important steps to ensure, for example, that the living wage is paid, we are still seeing very significant challenges in that workforce.
I'm wondering whether we can put pressure on the health board to support financially to get that out of the hole.
We
It's not so much, yeah, so it's not so much pressure. We're actually working in partnership with them.
Yeah.
It just says like regional partnership board, you know.
People don't like parting with money.
I mean, I think what we try to do is use the regional centres that have money available, so that health and social services are to use that money equitably and in a partnership way, which meets the needs of those that we've got.
It benefits both sides.
Yeah,
to get
it
it right.
does. Yeah, it does, absolutely. We do work very closely with our health colleagues. Is it perfect? No, it's not. Do we work as well as we possibly can within the confines of what we do? I think we possibly do, but it is immensely challenging. And you know, we're in the middle of just coming into the worst time of the year for this particular issue in December.
We're very conscious as well, the pressure that our health colleagues are under during this time of year as well. And it's well, it's not even this time of year. It's all year now. So you know, so and it's just about that, getting it right in relation to that partnership and making the most of what's available.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. You raised some very good, interesting points. Totally agree. I understand that you're working in partnership with the health colleagues. Agree with the councillor. It is all about budgets. Health will protect their budget. We will protect our budgets, and it does come down to the budgets. No matter how collaborative you work, however, there's some very interesting dialogue gone backwards and forwards to table, and I'm going to ask for this to be put on our work programme and maybe some more outcomes on what can be done, what has been done. You know, we could bring this back again and really have a good look at this. But it's just sorry.
Yeah, possibly we can, if we can have a special meeting in regards to that, and possibly get the health board here as well to discuss how they're working. If that's clear.
I see no reason unless I'm told otherwise, but I think that that's something that we can discuss at the end of our meeting. And you have my support.
Go for all.
You have my support, Councillor. Thank you very much indeed, and thank you, Pat, for raising that at the very beginning. Okay, number 33. Back in time. 34. Ending on page 35. 36. 37. I've got 37. Reference 2, improve the external communication of safeguarding information to ensure that they know who and, on the page, how they can access the information, advice and assistance they need. can you outline we have some of the indication there as to what we're doing and how we're going to improve our communications so that it's accessible to everyone.
Sure. So some members may have, I hope some members may have been aware that it was National Safeguarding Week 2 weeks ago, and that there was information, for example, in the foyer of the Civic for the whole of that week, and with leaflets and so on. And I got a really nice water drinking bottle out of it. And so there are throughout the year a series of events that happen which are about communicating internally. So that's with council staff, with members, and with those that we work with. And I suppose that is just one really small example of where we used National Safeguarding Weeks to sort of hang something on it and be able to communicate more widely within the council. I think in terms of that whole external information, again, we use National Safeguarding Week, for example, with our colleagues in communications, to use social media to ensure that we were promoting that it was National Safeguarding Week and what that meant, and also what safeguarding means. What does that mean for children, for vulnerable adults? Where does that fit? So throughout that week, that was communicated all the way through in terms of ensuring that social media, we were pushing out those messages in terms of safeguarding. I think what you'll see, obviously, in the action outcomes is continuing to use the methods that we've already got. So you've got social media and you've also got Newport Matters, where again, you've also got communication out. And again, as members will be aware, that goes out to all households in Newport, so you've got that information there. And I suppose more than that, I think that what we really continuing to try to do is really focus on ensuring that we have training available for members, for staff, for volunteers. Members, I'm sure some of you will have attended the session that was put on for new members to look at safeguarding, and we will continue to do that throughout the year. And also for a significant number of members, you will also sit on governing bodies. So you will link in with schools' responses to safeguarding and the responsibility that you as a member of the governing body may have in relation to safeguarding. And then that spreads those messages as widely as we can. So I suppose what I'm trying to push is saying you have a responsibility in this in the same way as we have to share those messages and take them. I think in terms of when we look at how we ensure that we as the council take a real lead with other agencies, we have a local forum that meets quarterly, I think now, which looks at a number of agencies coming together to sort of talk about particular topics, particular issues. In Safeguarding Week, there was a whole branch of activities that went on through that week for all agencies to be able to access. So there is a sort of wealth of activity that happens. I think the other thing that I'd include in this, and I mean, just as a note, we will be coming to Scrutiny tomorrow to present the work of violence against women, domestic abuse, sexual violence, because that sits within the safeguarding arena. And again, members will have seen throughout the year a number of campaigns in that area of work in terms of domestic abuse and sexual violence and how we work in that arena and how we promote that work. We're currently in the 16 Days of Action part of White Ribbon. And again, members will have seen some of the materials that we'll put out that we're part of, communicating the need for continued understanding and vigilance in relation to domestic abuse and sexual violence. So there's a whole swathe of things that sits under this particular.
Councillor Watkins.
It's on page 38, the second one down in regards to safeguarding. I understand you work in collaboration with the local authorities, but what concerns me is when a family outside of the local authorities come into authority, how do we scrutinise and when they have a safeguarding issue? Because I believe one or two children north of UK have actually moved from one authority to another to avoid social services intervention. And I'm wondering how you'd actually do that.
I mean, that does happen. I mean, thankfully, that is very rare where you see families that deliberately undertake to do that. But I mean, you're aware, Councillor Watkins, Newport, there is a lot of coming and going. People move from different areas of Gwent. And obviously, we have families moving here from all over the world. So we have a range of people who come in and out of the city.
I know, smash that.
I mean, Natalie's probably better equipped in many ways to answer this than I am. So what we really do all the time is that when families are referred to us, it doesn't matter where they've lived or where they've come from. We see them and assess them in the same way. So if a family is referred to us by police, health, education, it doesn't matter where they've lived before, we will look at them. There are quite often interesting conversations when families move into the area where they've previously worked with a different local authority and who's going to take responsibility. I think we would both be on the same page in this. We take quite a positive approach to this. Whilst we don't want to see additional work for Newport where families previously lived somewhere else, we also recognise where there's a safeguarding we need to meet it. And we need to ensure that that risk is met, even though sometimes we might feel pretty grumpy and say, actually, this is going to use a local authority far away, Worcestershire's responsibility. Don't shirk it. We see that as their children, vulnerable adults, we need to respond. So there is close working. We are part of the Wales-wide, nearly all local, 16 local authorities in Wales on the same IT system. So when you go into that system, you can access names from across the whole of Wales. So if I went in there now and typed in a name, I could see where they'd previously been known in a different local authority. I couldn't access that information straight off, but I could see where they'd been.
But you could contact that local authority.
Yes. Similarly, obviously, police colleagues, we work really closely with our police colleagues. They're based with us. It's a energy hub, so access for children and adult services is probably better than it's ever been. And that then gives us access to a network of information that the police also hold, which also assists us in terms of families who tragically hop, or where just families have moved because things are difficult and chaotic, but they need ongoing services.
I just take you back to section 2, Sally, the information.
Yeah.
We are responsible all around this table, and we know that. But I guess you were being scrutinised on us today. It's the only day that we're not, but I guess we're all scrutinised anyway. I guess the biggest supporter of getting the word around and getting the campaign out there day in, day out, it has to be people-led.
Yeah.
It's people-led. We can lead so far. Now maybe just as a suggestion, there's a lot of elected members, given the fact that you've mentioned this, that are associated with very good local ward Facebook pages, and if you were to do an advert of some kind, I mean, I'll just leave that one there. This could be facilitated through the local networks that we subscribe to, so we know that okay. And again, it's about revisiting that maybe 4 times throughout the year, just to keep that message alive, because safeguarding is massive and it is everybody's responsibility. And thank you for taking this through that, and thank you members for your questions. Thank you. If we could look at that maybe and bring that back, that you council cabinet members indicating his agreement as well. I'm happy with that. Okay. Anything else on 38? 39. Page 40.
Item 2 on page 48 is the provision of accommodation for adults with learning disabilities program. Is that very urgent as such? Have we got a lot of adults within that ranking?
No, we don't have a large number. We've done some really interesting work in this area in terms of working with registered social landlords to develop really good models of care, which really increase independence for this particular group. And if Chair was interested, we would be happy to come back to present some of that work, because I think it is a really good example of working creatively. And I was talking to a manager the week before last about this, and he was telling me of children who he'd previously worked with in children's services who are now young adults who've been able to access this sort of accommodation, and the real strides they've made in terms of being able to live really independent and fulfilling lives with this kind of support. So if the Chair was willing and the committee was interested, we'd be really happy to come back to present some of them.
I'm interested really, Chair, and also the fact that are we working with all the social landlords or just one particular?
No, we like to throw the net to those who work with us. So I think we're working with a range of people and looking at how we do it. But it's that model of really offering positive, good quality accommodation with good support and appropriate support. So yeah, we would be really happy to come back to
Supplementary.
Yes,
Are we, or have we found difficulty in getting that support when they're independent?
in the same way as we come back to workforce. I mean, you know, if ever there was a theme, workforce is going to be it. I mean, in terms of building the relationships with the registered social landlord, no, that part of the work hasn't been. People want to work and want to do this and want to do this together and see the benefits. I think some of the work in terms of workforce in this area is a little bit easier because it's quite settled employment in a way. So you tend to see a bit more of a niche development, don't you? But it's still an issue. So yes, it's an interesting area.
How does this fit with the Eliminate strategy?
Well, most of this work is with registered social landlords, so they would be not-for-profit organisations anyway. The Eliminate agenda in the programme for government is very much about children's social care, not about.
Thank you. Oh yes, of course. We've done it. We've done it.
Good.
Of course we said it. Yes. Thank you.
I think it'll be one of those where we can bring uplifting film and photographs as well. So you can listen.
I'm sure you're going to have a lot more probing questions. You would have had a few more off me that you're bringing it back. Since that can wait. And I see we have a March to 2024.
Yeah.
But we'll see you a lot earlier than that.
No doubt.
I hope so. Thank you. I think I missed page 39. I missed that, so we'll go 39. And we'll jump to 41. That's okay. 42. And 43, service risk area plans. Okay, anybody on 43? No. Okay. When will the liberty protection safeguarding legislation be fully in place with us?
It should be next year, so it's been delayed.
Yeah, so we're past the 24. And that's okay. I'm going to leave that there for them.
One question, Chair. Service area risk register.
Yeah.
I've got the painting of brown. Is that good or bad or?
Amber.
Amber, because it's
I'm learning this. This brown is amber.
murky.
It's amber.
And the amber was red last week. And those type goes, I mean,
Thank you.
it's, we have a new, we've had this every on we did colourfully.
Yes, sent to the table last week.
It's sent through the table. Did we have double amber? Double,
So the way it,
I can't see.
Simon will correct me if I'm wrong, the way it works
Yeah.
is with red, amber, yellow, green.
Yeah,
In the
yeah.
I don't think there's a brown.
Well, best of luck with that anyway. That's all I can say. Can I thank
It's
you?
reduced anyway. So
Can I thank you, all three of you, for coming out and those who work behind the teams to collate all this information for us to take apart, basically, and to put it back together. And can I just wish you all a happy Christmas and a safe and prosperous New Year. And we look forward to seeing you with the new thing we've had. Yeah, you're staying.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're staying.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm throwing you out early. I do apologise. I don't want to throw you out. I'll withdraw everything I've said now and welcome back. I wish you all the best in this. Sadly, yeah. You blame someone else for that. There we go. You weren't supposed to be presenting that, were you?
No, I wasn't. That's right.
I'll use that as an excuse. Okay, we're going over now to item 5, the Director of Social Services Annual Report 21 to 22. Okay, and we're going to have the Director of Social Services, Sally Ann Jenkins, to take us through it.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Chair. Thank you. So we've got in front of you my annual report. This is a statutory requirement that I present this report. It then goes to Cabinet and it is then presented as Council. The format of the report is laid out, and what I would advise is that there are currently some work undergoing to look at the nature of this report, how it's presented and what's in it. And I think there's something really important to think about is that as the Director of Social Services, what you want is a report that people read and will be able to understand their interests. And I think there is something about looking forward about how we might consider that in light of new guidance. Obviously, for the bulk of 21 and 22, and Chris Humphrey was the acting Director of Social Services. She left us in November of 2020. And hence this report is very much just a kind of summary of her period and then the first 6 months when I took the role as Director of Social Services. And the other part that this report covers is also during that period we also saw a restructuring of the senior management, so some changes in terms of what sits within the Directorate for Social Services. So what I've tried to do is keep it quite short and quite succinct rather than dwelling too long, and also recognising that the bulk of the period that this current covers for 21-22, we were also still very much within the strictures of the pandemic. And Councillor Hughes has referred to already in terms of what social services had to do during that period and how we had to work was obviously incredibly challenging in absolutely needing to continue to provide all the services that we provide. Most of the services that we provide require face-to-face contact. Social services, social work is about relationships, it's about people. And that whilst we have really embraced many aspects of hybrid working and being able to use different mechanisms that core throughout the pandemic, our staff have continued to go into people's homes to support people directly. And I think it's within this report, it's what I've in the end really tried to emphasise is, I suppose, the immense pride and gratitude in terms of for our staff, in that throughout the period of the pandemic, including 21-22, and the strictures that were placed on them, our staff have continued to work in a way that has really been able to address need and provide care and support across the city. The other thing that I did was that I took the report from last year and I looked at some of the recommendations that come from that. and how we had and haven't been able to meet some of those recommendations, COVID notwithstanding. And then also, rather than reinvent the wheel, I've taken the Children's Services Plan, the Children's Services Review for 21-22, the Adult Services Plan and the Adult Services Review for 21-22, and appended them to my report as a review, basically. So hopefully that just gives you a little bit of the context in terms of the background to this report. We do hope to be able to take this to Cabinet on the 14th of December, and it will then go into Council. So I'm obviously very happy to take any questions and any comments from any member. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sally. Okay, page 50, 51 to 53. 4, 55 and 56, 7, 58, 59. Okay, on 59, to continue to provide the rapid response service to families in crisis. The Rapid Response Service, in partnership with Bernardo's, has continued to offer support to families on the cusp of breakdown. The staffing was expanded using COVID recovery monies, and the service is currently being evaluated. Well, we know that COVID recovery monies have gone. We know that any, please correct me if I'm wrong, any underspends gone into a central pot of the council, so we can't drag that back out, given that we've lost that. What if no funding? What if there's no funding or no grant funding? How does that impact? Can we continue?
At the moment, at this point in time, for 22-23, we continue to provide the rapid response service. So whilst COVID recovery monies was used to expand service, we had other money in there which originally provided for some of the sector. So we continue to deliver the service throughout 22-23. Obviously, we are ongoing trying to look at how we provide the best service possible. Natalie has referred to other pots of grant money that we've applied to Welsh Government for, that we're waiting for the final details of how that breaks down. One of the elements that we were really clear about, that this was a really valuable service at the front door for us, particularly for families of teenagers, and hence part of our submission for the grant money for this service. We've had some early indication that that has been successful, but we await confirmation.
Good, thank you. That's what we get out. I'm glad that you're continuing to provide that service. Okay, 59. Not page everybody. Page 60. 61. 62.
Yeah, on 62. Appreciate when you hit the road, Sally. COVID also hit the road shortly afterwards. I appreciate the difficulties there. And I also appreciate what you said about face-to-face work and social working is a face-to-face thing. On 62, it is continue to identify and source additional educational support.
Yeah.
Is IT and perhaps artificial intelligence going to be part of providing additional educational support?
It already is. I mean, throughout the pandemic, we were children who looked after children with child protection register and children who were receiving caring support. We were really proactive in using IT in providing the right kit, and then using that really creatively. We've got some really lovely examples of, for example, children in foster care doing work online and sessions with art therapy, all sorts of things that we were able to do. Understand children and young people using different forms of social media can be a real positive in terms of how we work. I'm sure all of us have got examples of friends and relatives where social media is the only way that they communicate with us. And the same with children and young people. What's interesting is when you ask children or young people, whilst they are seen as the generation, or they actually still want face-to-face contact as well. So we need to be able to combine a really solid approach which ensures we have that face-to-face provision, and then where appropriate, and for those children where it works, we also use CMT support, so it's using the tools and them. So we already do it. Yes, we will continue to do it, and yes, we will look. I think it's never going to finish this, are you? This is one of those things we will never finish because technology will continue to develop for us. I think it's one of the things I feel quite proud about the way that we've used IT. I think, for example, the way that we now manage our child protection conferences is actually more efficient than it was before because we've learned how to do it. But again, we have really good attendance online from our health colleagues, which we never got before. So there are pluses. And for children and young people, I think it's meant things like I did a fantastic Zoom pizza making evening with the young carers. And again, that was a different way of doing something. It doesn't replace the face-to-face, but it can add some value to it. It was really good pizza, by the way. Yeah, I'm going to raise that, yes.
Thank you, Jay.
Yeah, thank you. It is a balance when you're dealing with young people as to, and I guess also as social workers and people that look after our young people. Let's always use your gut instinct, you know, when to go and when not to go.
I mean, the other element linked to this is how we work with older people. Sometimes we make an assumption that this is just about young people, but actually using technology to support older people or people who are frail is hugely important. And again, we previously, so pre-COVID, brought the electronic dogs and cats and babies, which for some people with dementia are an immense solace and a real comfort. Now, if you go into, for example, one of our homes and you see a array of people holding a baby, yeah, it brings them a comfort, and those babies are warm to the touch and they breathe. They don't breathe, but they.
Yeah.
So I think there's something about, whilst we make the assumption that very often it's children and young people, for older people, there is also a real way that we can work, and we will continue to work to use technology as an effective way to run in parallel with that people contact, basically.
I think I made exactly that assumption, and and I'm glad that you've de-assumptionized me, if there's ever such a word, regarding older people. But it might be worthwhile bringing a couple of these things in next time, just so that people can. I've never really seen them myself.
I'm sure we could. I mean, yes, we could.
I can see that.
It is. It's really. I mean,
Yeah,
it's impressive, isn't it? It's really impressive.
Yeah, it's great. We don't see a couple of days ago. They look like tablets, but they're ways of communicating with the phones. They've got each phone with somebody. They all flash up when they ring, so it's great for people who've got hearing issues. So they're using IT really, really cleverly.
Yeah,
we're going to see. I think we're going to see some really dramatic changes in the next 4 or 5 years.
Oh, I think so. I think it's fascinating and great steps forward. Great steps forward. Thank you. Fantastic questions, guys. 63, 64, 65, 66, 67. the financial resources and how we plan for the future, massive one, given the fact that we underspend, we overspend, and, you know, it's easy to be critical sometimes, but where are we actually going? You tell me where we're going, and then maybe I'll ask my question there.
So obviously this is the director's report for 21-22.
Yeah.
And 21-22 was possibly in 10 years that I've been with the council the most representative year in social services budgets, largely because we did really benefit from the COVID recovery funds. So when you look at these two, for both children and adults, with significant underspend in both of them, but that was largely as a result of the COVID recovery and doesn't represent the budget as we came into 22, 23, and then obviously beyond. So I think obviously hugely important, but I think given the year that this was in, this is not a representative year of the budget. And I think it's interesting when you look at the areas of overspending within 21-22, you'll pick up on it straight away. Things like Natalie's already mentioned, mother and baby placement. So you've got some of those aspects that we've started with trying to address through other elements of the plans. I think the other bit that I had to draw his attention to is, given that we talked about the international team, is that unaccompanied asylum-seeking children and the support, the financial support we get from the Home Office to work with that group of children, that's assisted us in being able to be very proactive in terms of developing the resource that we've got. But the reality is that going forward, 22-23, our budget situation is very different. We don't have a backdrop in terms of the overall economic issues that we're all facing, the challenges. As you all know, we absolutely still have to put the electric on. So the challenges for social services are the same as they are for the whole council in relation to go.
Thank you, Sally, for that.
Another question.
Yes, please.
You mentioned COVID, number of
Yeah.
issues there. Do you still think that is a financial pressure because it's still a movement?
Yeah, I think that is a really good question, because I think it's still a pressure in terms of what we're seeing as the consequences of COVID. I mean, Natalie mentioned the complexity of the work that children's services are doing. I'm sure if Mary were here, she would say that is equally true in adults, where we've seen increased numbers of referrals linked to adult mental health, and where we've seen older people who have lost some of that functional independence and fitness that they had because of the pandemic. And we also still, sometimes it feels, some days you think, what pandemic that happened, but actually all of us experienced loss during that period, either directly or loss of opportunity, loss of hope. So I think that consequence is with us and is really challenging for social services even now. And Councillor Hughes referred to the impact it's had on our staffing. It's made people rethink their lives. Do you want to work as a care worker? Do you want to earn more money working in Costa? Not a choice, is it? So some real challenges. So the financial consequences then fall out from there. And I think some of the issues that we now see with complexity, with workforce, are a result of 2 years of pandemic. And we still see I just had COVID. You know, we still see staff being off with COVID. And so we still see it. So it is a challenge, because you almost, I don't want there to have been a pandemic. I don't want to have to think about it. And yet it's still there.
I think it's worth saying, you know, in the same way that we've talked about workforce, about real pressures of trying to recruit people into the profession, there's an equal amount of work going on the other side of the tunnel as it was in relation to retention of staff. You know, and I think that work is just as equally as important, because, you know, people can only take so much, can they, into their lives. And I think if you're under a constant bombardment, how long can you hold? You know, I think that's the importance there, making sure that the support we give staff on the other side is equally as good as the work we put on the other side to recruit.
I mean, the good thing is governments are working as hard to kind of get staff into my daughter qualified as a regular mental health nurse on Thursday. She had a pin sent to her on the Friday, and she's starting work on the Monday. They're whipping them in left, right, and centre because we are in desperate need of things. But going back to staffing and COVID money and all the rest of it that we experienced. One impact is now the COVID grants have ended. So on sickness of staff, where we were covered by COVID, on post 28 week pregnancies, we were covered by COVID, where staff could work up to 28 weeks, but they didn't have to come in to work because if they were pregnant because of COVID. So we had finances available to cover. How is that impacting on our workforce now?
Sickness rates, because obviously we can look at sickness rates comparatively across Wales, so we know what our sickness rates are. And our sickness rates are okay. We haven't got huge numbers of people on. We sit quite nicely in the middle in terms of the percentage of our staff who are not anyone. And I always think being in the middle is quite a safe place to be. You don't want to be the best, you don't want to be the worst, be in the middle. So in terms of overall sickness, our rates of sickness, despite the challenges that we experience, are manageable at the moment. I mean, obviously there is a cost attached to sickness, and there is a cost attached in terms of, for example, 28 weeks of maternity. I mean, one of the things we are able to do is we are able to flex some of the way that social services works, so that where necessary, if somebody can't go out and do face-to-face work, they can now work from home. So interestingly, I'm just going to talk about me, but my brief spell of COVID, I still worked, but I worked at home.
Yes.
So there is something more of a balance that we're able to do now, which we weren't able to do before March 2020, which is quite interesting. And I this is a little bit off topic. I think maybe there's some really interesting learning to us for how we expect people to behave when they're around. And that, you know, previously, if you had a snotty cold and you were all, you'd come into work. Well, we've learned that actually that is really counterproductive for the rest of the workforce, and that we need to find better ways to manage that using the options that we've got for being able to access on Teams, and then when people can be face to face, they are. So,
just to
that's a good. Maybe that's a really good thing that. We don't want to know. Well, somebody said to me the other day about the money. We want another pound. No, absolutely do.
But it certainly is going to be a cost pressure on the service. And I'm sure the cabinet members is listening intently, and as he has budget things to take to cabinet, will be batting away there with his colleague and ensure that you get an increase. We'll see how that goes. Okay, page 69, 70, page 71, and that concludes us on page 72.
I have one general question.
You can engage
to the social service as well. What sort of vacancies do we have at the moment?
Children's services is 21% in terms of qualified social workers. That was the information I was given, yeah, in terms of qualified social workers.
And services is very similar to slightly. And we have similar rates in residential community children's. I mean, Natalie is already referred to is that it is a national issue.
But
it is food.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I now think done. I think it's done. And like I said before, the committee, happy Christmas to all of you, and thank you for taking all the questions this morning. And keep them as honest as you can, and we look forward to bringing everything else
Yes.
And don't forget the Christmas now.
No, I won't forget this.
Thank you. And these are some of
I had a pizza.
It's Christmas fancy, yeah. So, we're gonna just take a little second and let everybody go back. And thank you all for coming. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda. To you, I believe.
Yeah, version of the report. So I'll go through what I've noted, the committee have recommended and commented, and feel free to add as and when. Main three that I've got noted are updates surrounding the Eliminate, I suppose, project programme work. An update on the step up, step down work with maybe the health board attending as well.
Yes.
And the work with the registered social landlords to come back for an update.
Yeah.
I will, the agenda, the work programme, I'm sure you can see in your agenda packs, is full at the minute, but I can always work if committee are happy with Sally to maybe add a date in March.
Yeah.
We haven't got a date in March at the minute. Our last meeting will be in February. So we could always add a later date for those things to come back all together.
Yeah.
All Sally's
It's safe for them.
I mean, just a little presentation on Eliminate.
We take to the next one and to
No.
information.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah, we can schedule that expert.
yeah, absolutely. We can do it as
committee,
a more informal information meeting. We can do it. Maybe me and Sally can talk about maybe doing it as a normal member seminar, so the information is more widely available for all members. I'm sure it would come into a lot of different areas of work, but that's
It would do. Maybe at this stage we can just concentrate on this. I wouldn't say educativeness, but informingness.
Yeah.
Informing this committee first, and then if we want to take it forward, because the work is relevant to the committee, we need to fully get to grips with it. And so we'll just keep it here now.
Would you like it as information reports just coming through for your
We'd like
a meeting, or
we'd like it. I mean, please feel free to share those at home as well. Would you be acceptable to an extra meeting? So we don't have to just rush these things through, you know? Yeah, well, I think
Sort of March.
yeah,
okay. So let's take an extra meeting up. We'll be able to do justice to it then.
Yeah.
the only other thing I've got noted was your comment, Chair, about members being provided safeguarding awareness materials that you could promote.
Yeah,
locally.
the cabinet member and the head of social services are going to come up with that. Maybe you could chase that up.
Absolutely, I'll have to do that.
And then we could distribute that amongst the committee members and amongst other members of the council.
Absolutely, I've got that all noted though. Is there anything committee want to add?
No, some of these may take priority over, we'll sit down and have a look at our workforce.
Yeah.
Because sometimes with the workforce programme, we might want to bump something up the committee. There's a few things you might want to bump up. And push things down so we can move things around.
We can certainly take a look at that. Funny enough, it's the next item for me, Chair, so we can go straight into that if it would. Everyone's minds. Our next meeting is the 24th of January, and that's the draft budget proposal. So the financial projects projection. So that's obviously got to stay where that is.
Yes.
Following that, the next meeting is the 28th of February, which is the prevention and inclusion update.
Yeah.
And the children and adult services for regulatory inspection reports. Obviously, if you wanted to add something to that meeting or just go with the March meeting.
I mean, up to committee, I'm happy to
Go for March.
go
Yeah.
for March.
I'll speak with Sally and Lucas.
March, okay, guys at home? Good, thank you.
The only thing left for me is the action sheet. Obviously, there are a few that I've escalated, and hopefully I'll be well and talking to Sally and I'll be able to get more information from you that we're waiting for.
Yes.
I've been talking to Caroline for the information committee we met in last week. It should be either with me by the end of this week or the very start of next week. So we'll have something to circulate to committee regarding the prevention and inclusion information you asked for.
Yeah.
And that's it from me, Chair.
I think that's it for all of us now. I misled my agenda, but she was. I don't think there's anything else to add. Can I thank you all for your attendance in person and virtually this morning? It is important that we all listen to the good work and scrutinise the work to ensure it is being undertaken on behalf of the authority here and the residents of Newport. But thank you for your questions. They were very insightful. So thank you very much. And only now I can say to you guys, you know, I wish you a Merry Christmas.